All right. So first of all, I really appreciate you guys joining me today. I'm recovering from the flu or something, so I'm rocking the "Hey Baby" Barry White voice today. I've been reviewing some of the answers for registrations. I just want to set the expectations straight. I don't know what's coming next. I don't have any insider information on DOGE. I don't know what agencies are going to be doing stuff. What I can do is I can go through, and I appreciate Jamie joining me. He'll pop up in a minute again. But I really don't know what's happening. But I can show you what we learned from last week. And I think that's probably one of the most important things, right, Jamie? It was a pretty crazy session. Pretty crazy session last week.
Yes.
I appreciate you joining me. Jamie's with iAdvantage. I'm going to give him a full-blown shout-out in just a minute. So I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can tell you what is happening, and I'm going to pop into the handouts in just 1 second. Let me grab this real quick. Where is it? Where did my meeting stuff go? Oh, boy. Hopefully this is right. I'm going to try to do this real quick. I'm going to put this in here because we're going to start with these first. So there's the session docs. If everybody can click on that top link for me and let me know that he gets to you to a place that looks like this. Thumbs up if you get to that. And if you can't, let me know because I want to make sure you get these later. But the actual presentation itself is in here as well. Fantastic. Good. At least somebody's getting to it. So as we're working through this, I'm going to show you how interagency briefings work. We'll be talking about that today because and it's funny because I have some people that are saying, "Hey, I don't want it to be a sales presentation." Well, let me say this, Jamie. This is a sales presentation for GovBrief Interagency Briefings. And I don't want to make it overly salesy. We'll give you some things that are going to be important for how you can frame what you're doing. So we're going to talk about DOGE. But if I have something that is relevant that can help you get to key decision makers in the federal government, and I don't try to sell that to you because I have it, I would be stupid not to do that. I'm not. So I'm going to do my best to not be stupid today, Jamie.
Okay.
But I will say this. I'm going to say how you can leverage interagency briefings, leverage our database, and how we draw those folks in, and how to gain influence and grow your federal brand, because that's what we're all trying to do. Now, I will say that we can do this with DOGE. We can leverage DOGE to do this, and we really didn't know what to believe, right, Jamie? About 4 weeks ago, I got together with you on a strategy session, right?
Right.
And we had already scheduled this, and we had other folks that were pushing their interagency briefings out because they were saying that people couldn't come. Right? There's things being canceled. People's industry days are being canceled, all that kind of stuff. Right? And people are not showing up to industry days and not able to talk. And and Jamie and we've been working together for a while. And I was like, Jamie and iAdvantage folks, if you're crazy enough, I'm crazy enough to try. What's the worst that can happen, right, Jamie?
That's right.
They just don't show up, right? Well,
Right.
Let me tell you, that's why we're doing this right now, is because of what happened last week. I started putting this together when we were sending the invitations out because I was like, oh my goodness, there's something happening. Now, we didn't just start doing this with DOGE. We've been doing these briefings for 14 years. So I'm going to show you some of those and how you can become a subject matter expert. Like I said, leveraging our database and growing your federal brand. Now, I will say this, for anybody that's OCD and you are absolutely wired into agendas, I'm going to mess it up today because I got to flip these things around a little bit. I want to put some bottom line up front, bluff, right? Bottom line up front and I want to be respectful of Jamie's time because he's got plenty of things to do, but he was going to hop on with me today. And I got Brian Hebel coming in a little bit later. He's a former Govy, so we're going to talk a little bit more. but I'm going to flip things around a little bit, but I will get finally, as I mentioned, I'll get to how you can get started using interagency briefings, the pricing, the onboarding, and scheduling your first briefing, because time is of the essence with this. There's a lot of confusion. Nobody knows what to believe, and I didn't know what to believe until we did this. So what we're doing, this is selfish of me, Jamie, I'll tell you. We're looking for companies, one, who know they have a solution for DOGE. Now, we're going to talk about framing and taking what you have and can frame it in what DOGE is looking for, right, Jamie? That's what we did. We've been talking about this for years.
That's right.
And if you know the value of reaching federal stakeholders, that means program managers, project managers, procurement, and you know the importance of influence, if you are the type of person that has a solution for DOGE, you know that it's very valuable to reach federal stakeholders and it's important to gain influence, and you have the resources to pursue federal contracts, you're just starting out, this probably isn't for you. Stick around, you'll learn some things. But if this is you, I am going to say, hey, let's get started. Because the timing right now for us to be able to fill a vacuum and a void, like we did last week, is exceptional. So I'm going to talk about interagency briefings, how we got it started, what they are, how they work, and how you can use them to starting now to reach and influence federal decision makers. Now, before we get started, most folks know these, but I'm going to throw out some of these. So SME, a subject matter expert. Be the SME is always what I like to say. You want to be the SME for your industry. Govies are federal employees. I coined the phrase a while ago. People are starting to use that, but it just means federal people that work for the federal government. All right? Decision makers, DM, SES, the senior executive service. If you think about top level bureaucrats, a lot of shaking in the boots in these people right now, but the senior executive service are the top level bureaucrats, directors, SES is what they call them. PM, program manager or project manager, right? That's the program side of the house versus the procurement side of the house, which is CO or KO, depending on the agencies. RFP, most people know this, request for proposal. Executive order. Everybody knows what that means now. EO is the short for that, right? And if I wind up hitting the mic and you see me convulsing like crazy, it's because I have a coughing fit. So, I do my best. All right. BPA, blanket purchase agreement, IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. That's a vehicle that's used by the government. GSA, most folks know about that. GSA is getting shaken up right now. Robin Callahan, gone. She's a top dog. She's out. CTA is call to action. One of the things that we want to make sure we do, call to action is, hey, let's make sure we're driving for whatever the next is. Call to action, first meeting. Call to action, second meeting. Call to action, making sure you're staying relevant. All of these, getting in dialogue with the folks that need what you have. All right. So let me do this real quick. Let's get to know each other. Let me know, have you been around for a little while? Or maybe you're brand spanking new. Do you have federal business with grants? Or maybe as a contracts or grants? As a teaming partner? Maybe not yet. And if you've ever been to a GovBrief session before. If you've been to a GovBrief session before, you know kind of how this goes. If not, this is a great introduction because we do our best to keep it loose, keep it entertaining, as well as engaging and draw people through to figure out how we can help. And like I said, if you're brand spanking new, or if you've never done anything in the government, this is a wild time to get involved. But I've talked to at least a half a dozen people this week they're brand new. And what's cool about it is you don't know any different now. The confusion you're diving into is hey, this is what it's like. So you might actually be an advantage leveraging DOGE. So while you're filling that out, I want to talk about how we got started, so you can know a little bit about me, about ISI Federal. ISI Federal is the parent company, and I built ISI Federal to do representation in DC, kind of fractionalized rep, right? VP of Federal. Now, when I got into this, I didn't know anything. I was a square zero. I didn't know nothing. So I had a client that was crazy enough to pay me crazy money to do it. I didn't want to do it, but then I got into it. Now I can't get out. It's like the Hotel California, Jamie. So GovBrief, I started GovBrief for one simple reason. I needed to get meetings with key federal decision makers in DC. And I didn't know, I just had to get to them. And all I had was been doing research for years and pulling data. And I had all the contracting officers, so that's who I went out after. But that isn't where we are now, but that's where I started because I needed to get meetings with folks that were buying what we sell. Well, since then, GovBrief has continued to grow and has turned into a platform that we use. It's an education platform. And we use it to reach leadership. We're talking about top dogs. We've had secretaries, undersecretaries, deputy secretaries, all those things, directors, all the way down through the food chain in the program side of the house, as well as procurement, come to GovBrief sessions. And the reason why we do it is so that we can gain that interaction with those folks, right? I needed the meetings. I needed the follow-up meetings. Same thing happens. Well, since then, we have over 1,200 of these. And some of these have been sponsored by different vendors like Jamie's group. Some folks have actually included Govies that were presenting on as panelists. And we've had a ton of folks, over 110,000 attendees to these sessions since we started in 2012. So you might be asking, what is it? What is an interagency briefing? Well, an interagency briefing looks just like this. When we log on, Jamie logged on last week just like this. He's a panelist. He came in. It's a focused education session. It's not meant to be salesy. Not like this. This is meant to be salesy. At the end, I promise, it'll be salesy. But let me just tell you, as far as being able to educate people, letting people know what products you have or what services you have so that they gain an understanding of how you can fit. Well, we do it by topic, and it's kind of, we flip it upside down and we put it out and it says, who cares about data collection and managing data and reporting on data and data integrity? Who cares about that? Well, either you do, especially if you're doing projects or studies, right? Is that what they were, Jamie? You're muted, I think. I think
Studies and trials.
It was studies and trials, right? So if you're not doing studies and trials and you're not managing data, you're not showing up. So you see how it's kind of flipped upside down. But we use Zoom just like this. And you can also use Teams. We have some of our clients that use Teams. And it's professionally hosted. You'll see this background. And I happen to be the professionally hosted person. And the objective is to keep it engaging. It's 40 to 55 minutes long. Why? Because we want to get them in and out so that they can learn, get educated, and then move on through their day. We also have a call to action at the end. We'll talk about that a lot in this. We do them Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Why? Because Mondays and Fridays, half of the government is off, or a lot of people are off because they're working 410s. So we learned this a long time ago. So we strategically place them Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They're usually 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. because those are the best times. Now, if you kind of lean towards the West Coast, we push folks to the 1 p.m. sessions. Why? Because that way they can join. It's kind of early at 11 a.m. for a true West Coaster. They're repeatable monthly. That's the most that we do. We recommend 6 to 8 weeks because of the follow-up and the rest of the things that you can do to be able to prep for the next one. We don't do briefings between the 1st of September and the middle of October because they're not going to show up. It's very difficult for them. Every once in a while, we have a hot topic and we'll throw it in there in September. But for most instances, we're leaving them alone because their hair's on fire. So I'm going to end this poll in just a couple seconds. So if you could just let me know, if you just popped in, appreciate it. I'm going to put in the session docs for anybody that just came. And you can click that. It's the top is the session docs. So the objective, as I mentioned before, for interagency briefings is to drive federal decision makers to your session. and I mentioned this before, it cannot go any, I can't let it go that the type of folks that are coming to these, because we want to make sure we're gathering information so that we can leverage this information while we're building our reputation. We're identifying a current need. And while we're doing this, we're establishing you as a subject matter expert so we can qualify these prospects and get them through. Why are we doing this? And this is something I talked to somebody the other day, and they said, Dave, you got to get to the fundamentals when you talk about what GovBrief is doing and the reason why you're doing it. And this is the reason. We want to get our grubby little hands all over the RFP. So I'm going to end this poll, and I'm going to ask you this next poll. Where is it? Get rid of that. How important is it to get ahead of the RFP? Because either if you're doing is watching sam.gov and bidding, I'm gonna blow your mind in a minute, because I know how many solicitations actually hit sam.gov versus how many actually get go out of a different route. And the answer is 98% don't hit sam.gov. Now, for those of you who don't know me, if you know me, you know that that's the answer. And I would love to know, how do you do it? What is your process? So as we start to explore interagency briefings, the reason why we can do these and some of the key differentiators between us and anybody else that's doing any of this is because we have a monstrous database. It is loaded. We have industry contacts like you that we reach out for GovBrief as well. We do industry briefings to folks like you. We do trainings. We pull people in and experts, and we help you understand the federal market. We also have 77,000. Not sure if that number is really true right now. It may be less. And the number of employees that we have identified is probably less. But we're starting with 1.4 million. And that's the difference, is we have the ability to pull these folks and say, these are the folks we think will come to your session. And that's how we became the trusted resource. And we provide white glove support. Hey, there's Brian coming in. White glove support, that means we handle things. We're going to make it easy for you. It's professionally hosted, and we provide a finalized professional video. That's what makes us different than anybody else. And to get there. All right, so let's start. Let's see. I'm going to end this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last minute wallflowers who just refuse to participate. We're only at 52%, Jamie. That's ridiculous. But we'll take it. Whatever you want to give me. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. All right, so now I'm also going to share. I got to go here to view the details of the ones that answer questions. So I'm going to read those off in just a minute. And Harry, I'd love to hear from you in just a second. Are you raising your hand for a reason, Harry? Because I'll unmute you if it's raised. If it's not, I'll put it down for me. So how do you get inside, get ahead of it? All right. So here's what we know. This is what we know. All right. Critical is like 96%, 98% critical. I agree with you that it's critical. Now, let's see what they're saying. All right. Research and relationships, building relationships. How do you do it? Research and relationships, building relationships. Utilize every possible contact with the KO or CS. That's contract specialist. Reach out to PMs and other technical staff. That means get out, right? And then Sherry saying, I need to. Fantastic. Follow-on work. That's a great way if you're already in. Follow-on work. Templatize responses and keep them available as you create new RFPs. That's if you're doing your responses. That's a good one, Jason. I don't know how to do it. That's fine. We'll talk about that. Jay Talbot giving me the softball. Sam Radar. Bam. I love that. Sam Radar is another one of our systems, in case you were wondering. Get intel about clients' needs before RFP is released. Boom. Boom. I love that. Communicating with the customer. Michael, great. Discussion with competitive mates. Like that. Like that. Talk to the PM. Love that, Kenny. And then a pipeline system. Certainly that helps. Trying to figure it out. That's fantastic. Looking at existing contracts expiring. So expiring contracts, forecasts, right? RFIs. That's one way to do it. Be in touch with clients. Boom. Build relationships. Jason, right on. Shouldn't you show us to sidestep sam.gov? Joe, love it. Shouldn't you show us how to sidestep sam.gov? Boy, do I love you, Joe. Thanks for that one. That's almost as good as Jay's. Establish a pipeline 6 to 18 months before RFP. Fantastic, John. Sparks, great. Look at forecasts. I love it. Market surveys, right? Market surveys, industry days. There you go, Luzanne. All of these are great examples. Referrals, agency to agency, love it. Interactions, love that. That's one of my favorites. Interaction with stakeholders and buyers themselves, reaching out to customers. That's it. Proactive, being proactive. Get contact to the people in the agency. Respond to RFIs. That's a great one. RFIs and sources sought, right? Finding the RFP, right? Well, get ahead of it, right? Yeah, there's a couple, Denise, GovWin, and Seaport Portal. There you go. You can have systems that you have like that. And some folks don't know how to do it. And that's okay, because that's what we're here for. And today we're going to talk about how we can do it, number one, and we can leverage DOGE in the process. Because I really believe that when you have something hot, there's two different case studies I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to get to case studies soon, because I want to keep that, bottom line up front, Bluff, keep that coming. But seriously, if we don't know what the foundation is and the reason why we're doing it, we're going to miss, right? All right, I'm going to start talking about DOGE. And we're going to go right here. And we're going to go to doge.gov, and I'm going to show you how it works. Also in your handouts, by the way, is what? If you go to About DOGE right here, it's going to take you right to the executive order, the EO that kicked this whole thing off. Now, before we get too much into this, I'm going to say that DOGE is actually being overlaid or woven into USDS. Anybody know what USDS was or had any interface with USDS before this? Did anybody know? Raise your hand if you knew about USDS before this. Anybody? That's it. Rena's got it. U.S. Digital Service. It was created. Here we go. Hold on a sec. Let me see. David, I'm going to allow you to talk for a second. So David, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, so did you have interface with USDS?
Yeah, they were a client of ours.
See that? So that's fantastic. Now, they had a wild start, right? They started, Steve Van Rokel, I think, is the one that launched that. And then I got to meet Tony Scott. Tony Scott and Steve Van Rokel were both the U.S. CIOs, right? They worked at the White House, right? And USDS reported to the U.S. CIO, right, David?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's how it worked. We had a research contract for them, so yeah.
Very cool. So you're one of the few people, I think, that know. I appreciate you, man. I'm going to put your hand down for me. That's all right. Appreciate you. All right. So when we think about these things, what they did was pretty smart. They took something that was already there. It was meant. In fact, you can still go to usds.gov and you can see what they do. I don't think they changed this site in 10 years because it almost looks exactly the same. But what they were are SWAT teams that went into agencies to fix problems. So what they did is they took that model with the ability to go into those agencies, and they put DOGE on top of that. Now, I highly recommend that you read this all the way through. It's really, really educational for you to be able to determine what they need, right? So read this. And also there's a handout that I don't know if I got that in there or not. But what I would say is this. Does anybody know the number one word that they're looking for? Anybody know? Put it in the chat. Not DEI. Definitely not that. Efficiency. That's it. Efficiency. That is the number one word. And the rest of these, accountability, right? Accountability, value, all of those flow out of that efficiency piece, right? So when we talk about what we're doing, we're going to frame everything that we do, all your marketing materials, all your proposals, everything that you do should be framed within the framework of DOGE. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of that. But if we look at with DOGE, let me ask you a question. What do govies need? I'm talking about the government employees now, the people that are doing the work. What do govies need to meet the requirements for DOGE? Anybody want to throw in there? What do they need? They need contract support? They want to keep their jobs, don't they, Craig? Savings, Dirk, you're right. They need to find ways to trim, right? And be aware of what's required of them, right? Transparency, they want transparency, right? And they want to know, I love that, David. They want to understand how to work with DOGE, don't they? They need solutions. Simple systems to get the job done. Love that. Simplifying things, speeding things up, modernization. Love that, Billy Twig. Good to see you, man. It has been a long minute since I've talked to you. Holy cow. When's the last time we talked? That is a way long time ago. All right. So that is the fact. All that you're talking about there is absolutely true. Saving their jobs. Do you think they're worried about saving their jobs? Thumbs up if you think they're worried about saving their jobs. I'm telling you, there a lot of folks quaking in their booths, right? So when we're doing our proposal, before we even get the proposals, when we're engaging with these folks, think about the impact that you may have for being able to help them save their jobs. This is a different level of being able to build rapport and bring solutions to people who need them outside of the regular world that they've been trudging through. And they made us trudge through, by the way. We've been trudging through it. Now everything is shaking up. And when you shake things up, there's a vacuum. When you shake things up, there's change. And when you have change and a shake up, you have opportunities every single time. There's agencies that are going to disappear. USAID, whoop, it's already gone. And to your point with the DEI, and I'll say this, with GovBrief, we've been framing these things the way they want to buy. DOGE is the way they need to buy. So we want to frame it. For the past 4 years, I have reframed clothing, deaf services, furniture, trying to think of the other ones. A bunch of different things. Oh, communications, PR, all of those we framed in DEI because that's the way they were buying. So listen, I don't care whether you voted for it. I don't care whether you agree with it. I don't care about any of that. I don't care if you're left, right, red, blue. I don't care. All I care about is green. And if we know how to present ourselves to our targets using efficiency, we'll win. So I'm going to do a case study. I'm using you, Jamie, first, since you were here. I want to give a shout out to Jamie. We were talking, we got together, as I mentioned, we had a strategy session and we had this on the calendar, January 22nd, bam, OPM says, you can't talk to nobody. That's what they were saying.
Right.
And so I've been talking to folks inside the government since it happened. Shocking. And they're willing to talk. They will talk, but they're dealing with the change. And they're telling me how they're dealing with the change. But this was the issue. And I checked on it. And as of 2/21, right before we were ready to do our thing, this is still in place. So, clarification says the freeze is still in place. And that's why when I got together with iAdvantage, and I'm going to give iAdvantage a shout out, they have a product called eStudy. And how long has this been in operation, Jamie? eStudy?
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years through various modifications, right? And
Right.
we press out into the marketplace because it's based on scientific methodology, which means if you do things right in the setup of it, right, Jamie?
That's right.
Everything works through it. You have success with IR4, which is a EPA, right?
That's right. It's a USDA backed
USDA.
group. Yes.
So, and because they're able to reduce data replication and speed up data collection, two things, ding, 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 pinging on the efficiency meter,
That's right.
right? They also, how about ensure data integrity? How many of us have a problem with the integrity of government data? Thumbs up if you think they got a problem. And if you don't, I can't imagine. Thumbs up? Anybody? Just one? Really? Okay, there they are. I was like, okay. They need to ensure data integrity and to be able to track this from soup to nuts, to be able to say who touched this and if they changed anything, right, Jamie?
That's right.
And more importantly, they need to eliminate the need for data cleansing and using all kind of expensive tools, including AI, to go through this and try to make sense of stuff because they didn't collect it right. Right, Jamie?
That's right. That's right. Because you can't ask again. You have to ask the first time. You got to do it in a linear fashion.
That's exactly right. So we were like, okay, this was the name. It's the longest name that we've had, longest title we've ever had.
Yeah.
GovBrief. Meeting DOGE requirements for data collection, compilation, communication, and reporting for projects and studies. Right? So here, as I mentioned earlier, we took this out and we said, who cares? Who cares about meeting DOGE requirements for what? Number one word, data collection. That's the first thing.
Right.
Data collection, right? Because if you get that right, the rest of the stuff starts to fall in line. So we wanted to make sure they knew.
We absolutely believed that this list of people who might join this one would be small. In fact, you came down here. We spent a day down here talking about it. And it was almost like that gave us confidence, thinking, well, how many people are actually going to join?
I mean, who's gonna show up?
That's right.
So hold on for a sec. Right, because we were like maybe 10. So I'm just throwing this out that we framed it because we put it in data collection efficiency, right? So I shortened that whole thing for you, and we tied into the big word, right? Framing.
Right.
If you walk away with this, I don't care whether you buy anything from me or not. I do, sort of. But if you don't, walk away with this. Tie everything you do into this word and anything that's associated with that word. So here are the briefing statistics that Jamie was talking about, because we were like, we don't know if anybody's going to show up. Because nobody knew. Nobody knows what to believe, right, Jamie?
That's right.
I didn't know. So what I needed some proof. I needed to try. And Jamie and iAdvantage were willing to try. 318 registrants from 39 agencies with 185 attendees. Let that sink in for a minute. The second that I saw what was happening, I scheduled this session because you need to know, number one, that if you can reach them and you have something that can help them with DOGE, they're going to sign up. So that's where we started. Then we start talking about briefing interaction. So first things first, we do live audience engagement, no different than I did earlier with popping David up on the fly. We did it on the fly the other day, didn't we, Jamie?
That's right. That's absolutely. In fact, it seemed like right now they were more responsive to that than ever. Sometimes it's hard to get someone to break the ice unless they have a hard question or a real need that they're driving.
And does this look at the background that Jamie's got? Does it look familiar? It looks like
That's
Jamie
my
right
background.
now. Look at my background. Whole thing looks
Yep.
like. All right. So, and 98%, they stayed. They were
Yeah.
interacting with us, answering polls, And then they had, this was actually a follow-up email, but we had all kind of comments throughout, right, Jamie?
Yep.
And they were engaged throughout.
Yeah, the velocity increased, I think, because people started getting more engaged and more wanting to know more things. But for some reason, they just wanted to embrace this opportunity to get involved.
Yep.
Much more than we've seen in the past.
Much more. Much more. And we had 49 poll responses that gave us insider information for how they collect their data. I'm going to show you that real quick. So how do you get your data? How do you manage your data and put them into the next steps? Oh, that was weird. All right. So Joe, you can pop open in just 1 second. And then here's the kicker. 20 immediate follow-up.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, well, if you're working on it, I'll stop.
Who's that? Is that on your side, Jamie?
Brian.
That's a Brian. Brian left his mic open. So we have 20 immediate follow-ups. Look at what they're asking for. Look at what they're asking. We never had that happen, right, Jamie?
That's right. Nope. These are all things that we want to do, which is we have a complex product. It's a scientific product, and it's got complexity in that people can see it solves a lot of problems, but it's not really focused, right? Qualification is tough, but to have these kind of responses makes that qualification much easier in that next discussion.
Positively. Hey, Joe, you got a question? Because I'm going to talk about the fact that this is working right now.
Yeah, real quick.
This is last week. Go ahead, Joe.
All these slides you mentioned earlier, you showed all these PDF files. I wasn't able to find them. Will you email everybody these slides so we don't have to take pictures of them?
Oh, you don't have to take pictures. They're in there, man. They're in the handouts.
Well, where are the handouts? Because will you send it to everybody on it? Okay, I saw that, but did you send that to an email to everybody with these?
No, you can click it right now, and you have the overview right here. It's right there.
Yeah, but that's on the screen. How do I download? This is you showing us.
Let's click it. Just click on that drive. Click on that top link. Tell me if you can get to it. Can you see that? And you can download it right. You can download it to your screen.
I got it.
Cool.
Okay, and real quick, because I do a lot of work with federal employees. I may want to talk to you offline about how my stuff would apply. Now, this is the opportunity to be able to work with these people, but not have to do an RFP.
Yes, that's the goal.
All right. Okay.
But yeah, if you're doing federal employees, we have federal benefits advisory group. I think
that's what I do. Yeah, I'm a chartered federal benefits consultant for about 15 years.
We work with folks like that.
Yeah. All right. Because I'm also a fiduciary. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Love it. Thanks, man. All right. So they showed up for these sessions, right? This session, because they have a need. They're looking for solutions and they don't have a current resource. That's why people show up. If they have a current resource, they might be double checking, right? And the objective, just like Joe, you mentioned it, the objective is get your fingerprints all over the scope of work so that it never goes to RFP, right, Jamie?
That's right.
You don't want it to go to RFP.
No, you want them to have the problem that you can solve and that they see you as a solution.
So that's
at least the expert.
And that is absolutely the whole answer right there is being the expert in it. All right. So let me ask you a question. What is your area of expertise? Put that in the chat for me, because we're going to talk about this while we're going on. And because your area of expertise. Oh no, here we go. I'm going to put it in here. What is your area of expertise? Put it in the poll. That way I have a little bit more. That way I can go back and read it a little bit easier. Being a subject, you just mentioned it, Jamie. Being a subject matter expert, being considered the expert, how does that affect your ability to communicate?
Well, and it's real important that you're not really touting that well, is that for me, I'm able to stay on course to offer some over briefing, analysis, background, best practices, all those things. And yet you're pushing the call to action, you're pushing the agenda of getting them engaged. So it, for me as the user, it makes it easier because I can just stay on course. Hey, here's information I want to share with you. If you were buying a product like mine, these are the things you should care about. And I even say, right, several times I'll go, these are good questions for an RFI or an RFP. These are the kind of things you should be asking. And it gives me such a, I guess you would say, a very objective role in our briefing.
It does. That's the idea, right?
But you do a great job then closing it out with like call to actions. Hey, do you realize how important this is? You augment the fact that we are experts over and over so that they start to build up. So it works out really well. It just builds that image up in their head that this is a guy who can solve the problems. And I have had many phone calls post briefings with people who just even want to just tell me what they're doing because they feel like I've fulfilled that subject matter expert level.
That's awesome. And that's because we kept it focused on education, right?
That's right.
And you're giving them best practices. And I love Jamie has a great soft pedal. Like, I don't care whether you buy it or use somebody else's, do this. If you're going to do it right. And if you give people the best practices and you give people the path and they're able to get that across, it absolutely positively puts you in a position of authority, right?
Yeah.
I
Right.
appreciate it very much. And you can get out of here, man. I appreciate it every time you stay, but I love it. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Keep me posted on all the successes of that, because
Will do.
That's the main thing.
Thank you, Dave.
You bet. So I'm going to walk you guys through the process here, just so that you know what we do. So we look at the stakeholders. One of the reasons why GovBrief works so well is the database, and we go after the stakeholders. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but this is the first place where I put in SBA and OSDBUs. The number one reason I don't concentrate on SBA and OSDBUs, everybody else goes there, first of all. Secondly, they can only tell you no because they don't have the authority to tell you yes. So we want to bypass those, but we will include them sometimes in these sessions because at the very least, they can help you make some connections. They certainly know people that we don't know or you don't know, and they can help us make the connections if they understand what you're trying to accomplish with them. And I'll leave this poll open for another maybe 10 seconds, then we'll shut that down. So then somebody else mentioned earlier about the importance of research. One of the key components for assembling your interaction with all these folks deals with what is relevant to them. Right now, a lot of times we're doing executive orders. In fact, I'm going to show you how we started with EOs in just about every aspect of this, or some other type of memoranda, and they don't know what they are because there's so many of them and they're not paying attention to it. It's not relevant to them, and nobody told them why it should be relevant to them. But you can also find these things. We do research and we see performance reports. We look at the initiatives that are coming down and requirements. We look at everything. We also look at buying history and patterns of the agencies and who's doing the operations of those agencies. So we can reach out to the buyers, for crying out loud. If they're swimming in your pool, we definitely want them on here. But go across the board to say, make this relevant to them. Relevance is critical. Then we do invitations, and our invitations look just like the ones you saw, the ones that you signed up for. And we go through it and we say, here's the agenda. We keep it organized. We give you an overview. We say, hey, here's who should attend. And we set the expectations of what you're going to walk away with. And the objective, again, for this session is to walk away with a way to be able to reach decision makers using interagency briefings. Same thing you're going to do when you get up to talk about what you do in your area of expertise. And I'm going to open this up real quick. and look at what the areas of expertise for different folks are. Let me get that out of the way so not everybody sees email addresses and such. So security, absolutely. Architect, love that, Suzanne. Foreign military sales, nothing going on foreign military sales right now, David, sorry. Facilities planning and design, Sherry, love that. Camp construction management, that's wild, that's a new one. Lodging, food supply, catering, warehousing. Think there's ways to be more efficient with that? Change management, there's one for you. Human capital consulting, flipping out of DEI and putting in human capital consulting and figuring out a way to help manage that. Executive coaching. The reason why I say flipping out DEI is because if you're including DEI or you're pitching DEI, you're not pitching what they want to buy. I don't care, not personal beliefs. That's not what I'm talking about. They're not going to buy it. In fact, they are canceling contracts, record pace. And Brian, you can pop up in a minute and talk about that. But IT, like it. Upskilling, improving industrial, like that dirt. Solar, efficiency right there. Emergency backup, love that. Marketing communications, love it. Environmental, I got ideas for environmental. Train the trainer workshops, bringing out efficiencies, right? Love that, Angela. There's a lot of things in here. So it doesn't matter what you do. If we can frame it in DOGE and place it within the framework of these announcements, we will drive them to a presentation where you are the subject matter expert. Talking about your case studies, we put your case studies out there. I'm talking about my case studies. You take your case studies out there. And then you tell them how they can buy from you. Here's one for efficiencies in lighting. Using ESPC contracts. If you're not familiar with those, they're energy savings performance contracts. A lot of folks, when we started pushing these out, check this out, Brian, you're not gonna believe this. We started pushing these things out. We had 5 contracting officers that told us it was illegal. 5 contracting officers told us that ESPC contracts were illegal. You couldn't have a contract that saved money. And I was like, listen, we didn't create it. Department of Energy created it. It's a Department of Energy contract. It's been going on since the late 90s. We just happened to put it out in front of them, and they didn't know what they were. So we tell them how they can buy from you. And then we use polls and feedback, just like I'm doing right now, to engage, qualify, and then determine the urgency for when things happen. And we're talking about urgency like this. If you want to qualify your attendees, take a look at this. I expect a requirement when? Immediately. This is what happened. Excuse me. Just the other day, we had dozens of these that said, hey, we have a need. And this is how, and we talked about pipelines right earlier, enhancing your pipelines, filling your pipelines, doing the interaction that gets you the productivity in your pipelines. Here is where one briefing puts pipelines together like this. Immediate and future pipeline. 98% of these aren't going to show up on SAM.gov or GSA eBuy. They're going to go through different methodologies. That's where the next step falls into play, where you are following up because we give them a call to action. We're sending out recap emails. You're going to get them. Your attendees, you have the attendee reports with the need to say who needs what and who needs it the most. And now you have your hot ones and you have your warm ones and you have your future ones that you can warm up the way that sales are supposed to be. Giving you the opportunity, everybody pulled it up earlier, relationships, building those relationships, engaging and building those relationships. And the best part about it is it's repeatable. And that's why we do it over and over. And I'll give you a secret. You don't have to change your message. Your audience changes. Your message stays the same because you're reaching out and it wasn't on their desk at that time. That's the secret. Keep pitching the same thing or something close. Or maybe you flip them around a little bit. We do stuff with AI, with Divine. We do a zero trust architecture. So we'll go back and forth between those. And then if you're doing some things like Salesforce, or you're doing what's the other one? Microsoft. ServiceNow. There's another one. What's the other one? SharePoint, right? Maybe you're doing trainings and you're doing SharePoint. Everybody's got SharePoint. Being able to leverage SharePoint. So all those. So they'll show up to your sessions because they have need. They're not showing up because they don't have need. And I'll give you some examples, some specific examples. But if you're not looking for data collection, you weren't showing up. And if you're not looking for solutions, you're not showing up. And if you have a current resource for that, you're not showing up. So what we do is we make it easy to be able to do that. White glove treatment. You can choose the date and the topic. It's 100% managed by GovBrief. Jamie was talking about it. We put it out there and we just make it easy. He just takes the lead we take the lead. He just goes along and we do everything that's associated with it, including helping with the presentation itself. And then we run through the whole thing and get a finalized video and provide it on demand and YouTube. So I'm going to go to a case study now, and I want to get your take on this, because I don't know if you remember this, Brian. Real quick, let me introduce you, Brian. Brian Hebel is he's one of my buds. We got together, what, 2018, 2019?
2019.
Right. So right before COVID, and you put on a session and you invited me to be a speaker. It was cool. It was good stuff. Really, really cool sessions. We got to interact with a whole bunch of people there. You did a great job. He always says, you thought it was going to be low risk and high reward. And it wound up being what?
High risk and low reward. It was a business development and capture convention. I wanted to do. I was a government contracting officer for 32 of my 34-year career, retired in 17, and it's just something I wanted to do.
And it wound up not being quite that easy, but we still did. We had fun, right?
Yeah,
it was good time. So so the reason why I love Brian, we do a lot of training together on things, and we actually help Brian market acquisitionhelp.com, which is his.
And you're the reason, Dave, my business has been successful. I was trying to market myself. My numbers were going down, and I turned over the Dave back in probably 2020. And we've trained 5,000 people on my platform since turning it over to Dave and doing it. So,
and how much do you charge,
Dave, for that?
How much do you usually charge for that?
For a 2-hour training? Well, it's for industry. It's 2-hour training, and it's $225 is what we do. And we train 5,000 people. And we also train Govies too. We train Govies on how to do CPARs, how to evaluate proposals for our crash course.
So the reason I appreciate you being here, man, and you can speak to anything that you want to. I just talking about pitch points. I'm gonna go through aligning the pain points with pitch points. One of the pain points right now is DOGE for folks in the government, right? Isn't that right, Brian?
Yeah, and you know,
kids work there.
What's that? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And well, digital service people, different story. But I think the one thing that you're going to see, like, you know, because I'm looking at the data every day and things are slowing down, right? Terminations are speeding up, but things are slowing down. So what you're going to see is that crunch at the end of the year is going to be bigger than ever, I think, coming up. So, you know, what you're talking about, Dave, in terms of pitching and getting, you know, the contracting officer, the program managers to be interested in what you want, I think it's probably more important this year than ever. They're going to take shortcuts.
They're going to take shortcuts, and there's a vacuum. There's a lot of change, and we want to fill it. It's just that simple.
Yep.
And the more we do to help them get to those shortcuts, and a lot of times we're telling them how to get the shortcut, right, Brian? Mm-hmm. In fact, you willing to drop your wisdom bomb on the contractor that came
Oh.
in 2 years before
yeah.
you retired?
So anybody familiar with FAR 8.404F for GSA schedules? And by the way, when I ran the data, Dave, there were 5,138 terminations since inauguration day, and I think most of them were at the Federal Acquisition Service, and there were 3,084, I think the number was. FAR Dave just put in. I was going to say, oh, somebody knows FAR 8.404F. Anybody know FAR? Anybody have a GSA schedule? Let's ask them that, Dave.
Yeah.
Anybody have GSA schedules?
Thumbs up if you got a GSA schedule.
Or I was almost going to say, who doesn't, right?
Right. Thumbs up. Now,
Okay.
is that a MAFO?
Now, thumbs up. Does anybody know FAR 8.404F?
Yeah. Anybody know what it is? Because this is, I wasn't
FAR
expecting to do this, but go ahead. Tell them.
Okay. So here's my FAR 2015.
Look at the sides, though. Wait a minute. Don't go too far. Flip that sideways and look at that. Look at this guy. I love this guy because he loves to read the FAR, and I hate to read the FAR.
Yeah. So see, I have this one highlighted, and I've been a contracting officer 30 years, and I call this the Scott Godfrey clause. If you look him up on LinkedIn, you should say you should send him a message on LinkedIn and say, Scott, are you the 8.404F guy? And he'll say, yeah, because that's what everybody calls him now. But if you're in a civilian agency, they don't have to post everything on eBuy. Does everybody know that? You don't have to post it on. They don't have to post it on eBuy. So they'll just go FAR GSA, FAR Part 8 says they only have to go to 3 sources. So you'll never see something showing up on eBuy. But if you ask for it, so this clause says if the ordering activity issues the RFQ, the ordering activity shall provide the RFQ to any scheduled contractor that requests a copy of it. So all you got to do is ask them for a copy of it and you'll get it. And so what you could do essentially at this point in time, if you have a buyer or a program manager that wants to get to you, civilian agencies now, not DOD, you can say to them, hey, why don't you just send it out to limited sources? You can even tell them who the sources are, people who you know aren't going to bid for that matter. And they can just go, you can get in there. So if you see something on a forecast, something expiring, you write to your contracting officer, say, in accordance with 8.404F, I hereby request a copy of it.
So, and this is a cool thing.
That's one point, Dave. I don't know if you want to go over the other 2 points or not.
So, well, the cool thing is it doesn't matter which schedule. If they're going to put it out on GSA, it doesn't say it has to be on your SIN or your schedule. You can ask and they have to give it to you. And it's protestable.
Says shall.
Shall.
Doesn't say maybe or should.
Absolutely. So yeah, first of all, I appreciate that very much. And that's some great stuff, right? And David Bowles is talking about a multiple award fair opportunity. This is actually a single award, not fair opportunity. It's minimally competed. How about that?
Did you want to talk about logical follow-ons or no?
Sure. Go ahead. Tell people about logical follow-ons because I think that's another way.
Who of 105 people, how many have had a logical follow-on before? Anybody ever have a logical follow-on to their work? IDIQ contract or a GSA? Anybody? No logical follow-ons. Okay, remember, I was a contracting officer 32 years, so just keep in mind who's speaking right now. So they're in FAR Part 16, right? IDIQ contracts, FAR Part 8 GSA contracts. And if you go into, you're going to have to dig. You're going to have to go into the FAR. But if you go to FAR Part 16505 ordering, okay? If you go to that and you go to the section for fair opportunity and you look at exceptions to fair opportunity, what it does tell you in that section is that the contracting officer, if you have an order, GSA or an IDIQ, it says the same thing in FAR Part 8, you can do a logical follow-on. And it says right here, and it goes in with DOGE, and the order must be issued on a sole source basis in the interest of economy and efficiency because it is a logical follow-on to an order already issued under the contract, provided that all awardees were given a fair opportunity to be considered for the original award. So if you're on an IDIQ and it was originally competed, the agency can do a logical follow-on to you and just renew that contract They have to do a justification. It might, depending on the dollar size, it might have to go up a level behind the CO's boss, or maybe one or two more levels up, depending on the dollar size. But they can do a non-competitive logical follow-on, which is very important because things are getting backed up. GSA, now it does say in there, if it was originally competed amongst auto schedule holders, it says something along that line. So I think GSA, if they only went out to 3 or 6 and they didn't put it on eBuy, they might have a little bit of a problem doing a logical follow-on. But keep that in your toolbox. Okay, Dave, I hope that's enough. Is that good for everybody on there?
That's
Anybody
good for everybody, man. Never know what he's going to drop on everybody, and I appreciate it. And you're talking about contract termination for convenience next week, right?
Next week, we are doing contract terminations with Dave, and we're hopefully going to have 2 lawyers on there. But if you're interested in what you need to do and everything you know about contract terminations, we're doing it next week with Dave. It's going to be a great presentation.
Oh, that's right. It's not next week. It's the week after.
No, it's next week.
Yours is next
Or
week.
the week after. Week after. You're right. 21st.
Yeah.
The 21st.
He's doing it.
Yep.
He's doing it on his program, doing it on our program.
Which you market for me on mine. You do all my marketing.
I do it anyway.
So we're doing it on their end here. But terminations, everybody's interested. We got a lot of people signed up for the one next week, and we will on yours too, Dave. So
Yep. I'm sure of it.
Thank
All right, I'm going to get back to the case study and I want to talk about, specifically, I'm going to go back to the pain points and pitch points. And one of the pain points right now is DOGE. It's not the only pain point. So let's talk about how we find these pain points. So for those of you who have GSA schedules, and this is why it kind of ties into what Brian said. So back in, I guess it was 2014. Yeah, 2014. GSA had OS2 and they recompeted it to go to OS3. And normally, Brian, they would do a logical follow-on and just extend that contract, but they were prohibited to do that. Don't ask me why. I don't know why, but they couldn't. It wasn't in there. And it forced GSA. Why didn't this come in right? It forced GSA to suspend it, and it was immediately suspended. So this created a problem. VA and other agencies, all the other agencies, but VA specifically, was one of the biggest that were mandated to use this GSA OS2 IDIQ. So it's no longer there. So Cartridge Savers, who's our client at the time, so you can see how old this is. We were using GoToWebinar, Brian. I hadn't touched that since 2020. Anyway, their subject expertise is GSA FSSI contracts, and they also were GSA schedule holder. So Rob got up and we pushed this out. And let me tell you something. These are all contracting officers. I didn't have project managers and program managers, but contracting officers needed to order office supplies, commodities. They didn't know what to do. And let me tell you, when we started putting this out, it got hot. Somebody was complaining to GSA because we were marketing directly to them with this briefing. It was one of the first ones that we done this way, and they're like, it looks like a vendor is trying to take advantage of the fact that there isn't a contract. Well, freaking guilty as charged is what I say. And so it went up legal. So nobody likes this, by the way, Brian. Went up all the way to legal. GSA came down on my client, who was also in the running for OS3. So he was at risk. And I said, well, Rob, we're making some waves. And he said, well, what should we do? And I said, well, what do they need? So he went back and they said, we need a disclaimer. So to this day, the disclaimer that we use on GovBrief was given to us because I wrote it. I've never seen GSA work this fast, by the way. It went to them, went up to legal. They said, looks good to me. And we did the briefing. Now, the lady that was complaining came to the session. And I thought she was going to rip me a new one, but she didn't. And she wound up, at the beginning, I saw her. I was like, oh, gosh. She started talking. So what you're saying is they can just use GSA schedules? I said, yeah, that's it. GSA Schedule 75. Now, they were sunsetting GSA Schedule 75 at the time, and they weren't accepting anybody new on it, but there was dozens of people on it, to just go to them. Now, so happened that Rob, Wangard, and Cartridge Savers had a GSA Schedule 75. That was the solution. So the interactions look like this. First of all, she was, by the end of that, she was like, GSA should be doing these. You need to contact GSA and tell them that they should be doing this way. And I'm like, she's like, you tell everybody. I was like, no, I'm not putting that out. She was just texting me back and forth. And I was like, I'm not saying those things because we need GSA, even in the messes that there are. But this is the ultimate piece. They were recognized as a problem solver. They provided GSA Schedule 75 as a gap solution, and in that gap, $6.9 million in sales happened. That's the power of this. They showed up
Hey, Dave.
because, hold on one second, Brian. They showed up because they have need. They're looking for the solution. Solve my problem. I need to order office supplies. They don't have the resource. The current resource was a contract vehicle that they no longer have. And we made Rob the expert and help them solve their problem. And a lot of that stuff never, ever, 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 none of that stuff went out to RFP. So that's the reason. That's the reason why it worked. We used the urgency model, flipped it around, pushed it out, and said, hey, who has this problem? We had thousands of people sign up for it. So what are you going to say, Brian?
No, one thing is you're talking about that, like I'm just putting on my contracting officer hat again and the FAR. But one important thing, like I was listening to what you were saying. Remember, with the regulations, if it doesn't say anywhere that you can't do it, it's permissible. So a lot of times people will ask, they'll say, well, you can't do that. Your comment back to them, where does it say that I can? Yeah. Right? If it doesn't say you can't do it in this document, it's permissible. So like all those things that they were saying, contracting officer saying you can't do that, or this person saying you can't do that. Question back is, where does it say I can't do it? Right?
Yeah, I generally don't do that.
No, I'm not advocating that, but that's honest to God truth.
Tell me how I can't.
People say you can't do it, but they don't know why or where, and it's probably not anywhere.
And I can tell you that when we first started doing GovBrief, people were telling me that you couldn't have interagency briefings because you weren't an agency. Let's just say I didn't listen.
Dave, you did have that one question, and just to answer real quick, Ms. Booth was asking, yes, you can do it on GSA, but you have to read FAR 4.05-6. It's called limited sources, and it's got the same exact clause that I read to you before for FAR Part 16.
And is logical following only applicable to IDIQs?
No, it's GSA. It's that 8
or anything.
FAR, it says the same thing with FAR 405-6. It's called limited sources, except the only issue is if they limited the sources before and only went to 3 to 6 people, they might not be able to do a logical follow-on, but they still might, but because it was competed amongst 3 to 6. I don't know how an individual contracting officer would think about that.
So those are great contracting officer questions that you can ask directly to contracting officers. All right, I got another pre-DOGE. Then I got another DOGE coming up. All right, 6E, one of my favorite stories ever. Robotic process automation. Thumbs up if you know what RPA is. Anybody know what RPA is? Thumbs up. Anybody? All right, there you go. Fantastic. Love it. So we got people. We have an executive order, right? There's your executive order, EO. We're doing this back. I don't remember when this is. It'll probably pop up when it is. All right, so the subject is transition to electronic records. They want to use RPA to help with electronic records. That was their framing. They're framing in what they need to transition those. So briefing statistics, 187 registered, 121 showed up, 54 different agencies, smattered all over the place. One of those happened to be from an agency that Brian happens to know, but the briefing interaction showed a lot of interest, 34 non-published opportunities. That means when we did the poll, when do you need these? That means immediate or sometime in the future, 34 of them. Not on a forecast, not out there with the RFIs, before RFIs. And somebody said, hey, I want to talk with Como immediately. And Como saw it, she took it, and she ran, and the briefing results were very simple. Immediate follow-up meetings, just like everybody else gets. She got a new prime relationship because when she talked with the person, she says, I need what you have. I want, and they built the relationship, and she's like, I want this, but it's not going out. I'm going to introduce you to a prime who has dollars on an existing contract, and now they have a multi-million-dollar deal with who, Brian? I wonder who this agency is. Brian was how long were you with these characters? Oh, you're muted. How long were you there?
28 years.
So, with his former agency, is what I was getting to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this real quick because number one, I can, and number two, we do follow-ups to our sessions. So I'm not dressed up. They're not dressed up. It's not about how people look. It's about what they say.
You should never stop this service of GovBrief ever. You're not allowed to.
I got that recorded. I'm putting that on GovBrief.
We finally got to compare it to yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I sat through that and I was back in college 30 years ago going, man, this would be so much more fun if I had a beer here under the table. You're a great MC and it allows us to do a good presentation. I had a friend of mine who actually went and found our video about RPA online, watched it so she could learn about RPA. She said it was easier to learn about RPA by watching a video that you'd done for that 1 hour than it was to go read stuff about it.
That's
Dave,
a
why are you
great
doing that? You
compliment.
trying to say
That's a
something
great
bad about my
compliment.
agency?
That's why you're not
That's what you're trying to
allowed
do?
to stop this service at GovBrief.
Exactly.
I'm saying that again on record.
That's one of my favorites because it shows how we do our thing. And I wasn't trying to say anything bad about your agency. But they showed up because they had a need for RPA. They're looking for RPA solutions. We shook the tree. That's who fell out. And they saw Como as an RPA SME. Be the SME. That's how Como's company won. And she called me, and I got that picture with her outside of there. She called me the day before that. She's like, I'm in town. I just need to let you know that we got our fingerprints on that RFP. It never went out to RFP. We got our fingerprints on the scope. We got our fingerprints on the acquisition strategy. It didn't have to go out to the RFP. So now I got a question for you. Leveraging DOGE for drug testing? What are you talking about? How can that possibly be? So the question is, do they have need for drug testing? Are they looking for solutions to what? To DOGE to be more efficient? Are they looking out to outside current resources that they have? Well, apparently they are, and I'll tell you why. This happened the same thing last week. This is why I know this is happening last week. Oral fluid virtual instant drug testing. Anybody else even close to this? Raise your hand if you're even close to this. If this would touch your world in some form or fashion. And anybody? Drug testing, employment services. All right, hang on a second, Gina. Gina, unmute for a second. This is how we roll. You there, Gina?
I am.
What do you guys do?
We do staff augmentation for the Department of Energy, so we frequently have to send people for drug screening.
So you are a user, not a drug user, a user of drug testing.
Right.
Right, sorry. Didn't mean to put any implications out there, Gina. All right. Fantastic. I appreciate that. So check this out, because this operates the same fundamental way that this is. We just looked at the word efficiencies. We didn't push this as DOGE. We pushed it as efficiencies because that's the word, right? And here's what happened. 108 registered, 108 attended, 36 are Govies, and 44 were companies like yours, Gina, because you have the need for drug testing. And one of the people there was doing projects, and she's like, the problem is I have to wait. If there's an incident or something, I have to wait. She was doing management of machinery. A lot of folks that run machinery, right? They had to shut stuff down. If this person was not able, if they didn't test, if they tested positive, right? Because if there's an incident, then you have to shut things down. It was crazy. Anyway, so How do we find these folks? That's part of the 3.8 million vendors like you that would be able to draw in. We can draw in govies and we can draw in industry. We can do both. We did both at the same time in this instance. So 11 follow-up meetings requested, and there's so much dialogue was happening in there. We know that I haven't gotten a report back yet that anything closed, but that's super fast for things to close in this world. So, but the most important thing that I would say is they showed up to the session because they have a need for drug testing and they're looking for efficiencies to be able to reduce cost, to be able to make things happen faster, to be able to solve the problem of DOGE. They're getting pressure from DOGE. And now they know that stat test, which is the way that they do it, it's virtual. You can send those out. They can be kits. They can have their kits there, and then they log in and do it via the phone. They actually take over the phone. They have an app that gives the ability to control the phone. Crazy. We had people talking about that, saying you need to market that because they have patents on it. They have a justification and approval. If Brian's still here, he can talk about that. Joe Fock. But the objective is, hey, minimize your competition. So you have the ability to give them exactly what they need. And they got their fingerprints on the specifications. Get your fingerprints on it. That's what we got to do. All right. So I got a question. Do you have a solution that will help agencies with DOGE? We've talked about drug testing. We talked about data collection. Do you have one? And if you think so, but you're not sure, and you need help with framing, I'm going to point you to my good friend who's presenting next week on contracting in the new Trump administration to DOGE align your GovCon brand. If you're not sure, come to that session. It's on GovBrief. You can find it right now. GovBrief.us. I'll give you that real quick so that you guys, if you're interested in that, you can. This is Rafael Morero's industry briefing, because we do industry briefings as well. So we do that as well. So let's see what we got. It's about 50-50. We'll see what we have there. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is a sales thing for us. We are looking for clients who know they have a DOGE solution, know the value of reaching federal stakeholders, and know the importance of influence, of the things we just said. We have 4 case studies from all over the map. We have office supplies, we have RPA, we have drug testing, and we have data collection. Those are the 4 things that we just showed you. You don't have to do those things because this will work in all of these areas. Deaf services, we did training, shackles and rigging. That was one that was totally bizarre to me. I was like, who cares about shackles and rigging? Well, let me tell you something. When we did it, they were asking for samples. They created a shackle. That they were letting people know they had something unique. And then you also have office supplies, which is about not unique. Med-surg, IT, nearshore outsourcing, LEDs. That's what we did with the SPCs. And even brought Govies in on that one. We've done all these. Linguistics, wire, steel, BAA stuff. Oh, but anything but lawyers. Now you might be saying, how do you know? Because nobody shows up. That's how I know. We did it. And I told them, I said, they got enough lawyers. They don't need us from the outside with legal stuff. Now they do need, if you're a lawyer, training, reframe what you do in training, or an expert testimony. I positively know. So if you are one of the folks that know that you have a need and you know you have the resources to follow up, this is my call to action. I'm gonna give you a link that you can grab, as well as you can grab this from the handouts. There's a GovBrief slot reservation that you can fill out. Now, you're going to be saying, how much does it cost? It's coming, I promise. And I want to make this as simple as I can. The first briefing is $7,500. includes everything to get you on board, includes your market research, which is $2,000 value at least from ISI Federal, and it gives you 100% of the white glove treatment. You won't know what that means until you do it once. Once you understand what we do, you understand everything of what's built into that. Any additional briefings after that is, if you just do them individually, you can do them whenever you want. They're $4,500 each. And if you sign up for 6+ in an annual amount, then they're $3,850 each. And if you prepay annually, it's a 10% discount. The first one comes through the link that I just did through the slot reservation. You can sign up. It's simple. You sign the agreement. You pick your briefing date, and it's first come, first served. There's a list of the briefing dates that are available. You can reserve it. If we can't get that one, we'll get the next one that's the one that's closest to that's best for you. And then we schedule your onboarding. And as soon as you do it, you're going to start getting your fingerprints, getting your grubby little hands on getting ahead of the RFP and driving out what DOGE needs for the agencies. The soonest date that we have is March 25th. March 25th at 11 a.m. And if you do have a solution for DOGE, I do have one more little video for us from here, and I'll let this play, because these are our clients that we assembled from different things. I don't think you're on here, Brian. You should be on here.
GovBrief is incredible.
It couldn't get any easier.
Showed the difference between us and everybody else.
In fact, we couldn't have scripted it better. 118 people stayed for the whole thing.
We did less time and we got more leads. People already filling the forms.
There is no question why GovBrief is as successful as they are.
I thought I knew it all, and then I thought, why not subscribe, like buy your webinars, and then I won a contract.
If you had one thing to say to people about them using GovBrief, what would it be?
Do it.
GovBrief.
So the fact of the matter is they need you, and we love to help you get there. So I like that, Dawn. Determine if your company has a solution that can help DOGE. Sign up for the upcoming Align Your Gov. You can do that if you want to. Hang on, Brian. You can stay there. I do want to talk with you. And fill the GovBrief slot reservation. That's exactly right. Love that. All right. Any questions before we jump into the next thing? Actually, get you out of here because I got about 5 minutes left. I got a meeting at 3, so I can hang out with anybody that needs to chat. But if you said that you have it, if you have interest in that, I highly encourage you to get those. I have a meeting at 3, and that meeting is likely going to sew up several of the slots. So we'd love to work with you. Give us a shot. We'll make sure you're happy and you get what you need. Brian, when you started with us, you already had a platform that you were using, and yours is a little bit different because we do industry briefings for you, but the process is the same, right?
Yeah, the process is the same. Yeah, what was happening with my business is, I was trying to market myself and my numbers were going like this, right? Starting to go down because I had saturated the market. And Dave, after I hooked up with you, my numbers just, have gone up and they've been steady, right? We have people signed up for next week for our termination inconvenience. We have 70 people signed up. If it wasn't Dave for you, actually, I think we got 75. In fact, since I've been on here, we've had 3 people sign up for that. So, if it wasn't for you, I'd be retired after 34 years in the government. I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere, Dave. If it wasn't
for me, you'd be sitting on a beach.
Yeah. But Dave, you're always an innovator, and you always want to help people and do the right thing, and you're honest, and that's you're a good business partner together. So together we've been able to do some things, and we're still even, what I always like to say is, I don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm going to get there. And if you just have a goal in mind and push it out there, and then you'll meet good people like Dave or other people down the road, and you just keep pushing it because you don't know where it's going to go. And that's kind of what's happened with my business when we met Dave, and we didn't know, where that was going to go. And Dave and I have some other things going on in the background we're getting ready to release that we've been working on for about a year and a half right now. That's going to be big news for industry. on a certain segment of it. So,
Yeah, you
Dave,
can talk about it. Go ahead and say it. Tell them.
Well, it's CPAR's Radar. We are releasing a product called CPAR's Radar. We've been working on it 2 years with myself being a CPAR's expert. I teach the government on how to do CPARs, and another company, GovCon RX. We've teamed together, and with Dave programmers on the back end, we're actually providing a software subscription service enterprise-wide for companies to help them get the CPAR's ratings they deserve, and it'll provide them alerts, tips, tools. Me and the experts on the back end, we wrote all the artifacts and the tools, and Dave's people on the other end have done all the programming, pulling down FPDS data to provide alerts. So Dave's database has every contract from every piece of FPDS data in the system, and we will be providing the alerts to contractors, their program managers on an individual basis. And Dave's people built the system in the back end that we can provide alert to anybody, different alerts to people in the company. And as a result of that, I wrote a book, it's been CPAR's Guide and Best Practices, which has references to CPAR's Radar, and I'm waiting for us to release it. And I only wrote the book because of CPAR's Radar. I didn't write it for any reason. So we've been working on that together for a year and a half on the back end, and we're really close to releasing it.
And that's not your first book either.
No. But anyhow, it's going to be my best book.
So yeah.
But you just throw it out there. I wrote a fiction book at 18, not knowing where it was going to go. It didn't go anywhere, but it was okay.
Hey.
So what I love about Dave and his team is they think outside the box, just like this presentation today, and what happens. And he's got success on the back end, and it's pretty amazing the stuff that you've done, Dave. And I'm just one little niche of that, but it's been.
I love it, and I think you said something. Is that good people working together makes good things happen. That's what I love.
Yep. Help people and do the right thing, and everything else take care of itself. I always say.
And like I said earlier, this is a unique time, and when we didn't know the vacuum that was available, that was there, because nobody knew what to think. Nobody knows what's real. You watch Fox News, that's Fox News real, and watch CNN, that's CNN real. Nobody knows what's real, but this is real. We just did it last week. We can repeat it again. You're welcome, Demetrios and John and Michael, Billy Twig, man. Good to see you pop in, man. It's been a minute. Awesome. I appreciate you.
But I can't believe, Dave, it's amazing the number of gubbies you have had on some of your presentations being a gubby. Thinking, what are you doing? And you did it. And it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Like I just can't believe some of those, the one you did 2 weeks ago. Would you have 300 gubbies on it or
last week? It was last week.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And nobody thinks like you. Nobody thinks like you, Dave.
I appreciate that, man. But seriously, it was, we didn't know. And as soon as we started up marketing it and people started signing up, because you and I know what the memos are saying, that they can't talk to you.
Right.
What's real?
But you push it out there, just like when you're doing a GovBrief. You don't know how it's going to work, but you push it out there, and a lot of times you're surprised what's going to happen. Right? You gotta push yourself out there. Failure is okay, but you just got to keep moving down the track, and you don't know where in the road it's going to take you. But it might, where you started from and where you might end up through, Dave, for people using your platform. You don't know. Just like our training. They're right.
Yep.
We pushed it out there. We created this termination for convenience. We created it 2 weeks ago, just seeing what's going on, and now we have, 70 people signed up.
I agree.
75
Joe,
people.
Joe's
We'll probably
asking,
have 150 by the time next week comes around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you have 200. I think we're gonna have 200 easy. Joe, you want to pop open for a minute and just talk?
Yeah, I as I put in that note, can you go back to that first briefing and additional briefing slide, please?
First briefing.
Yeah, it's a couple slides back. The simple pricing.
Oh, the simple pricing?
Yes, please.
All right, 1 second. I'll get there.
I want to know this. I normally host workshops for federal employees. Okay.
Yep.
And I've done many different types of platforms where I'm doing Zoom calls and so forth. This would be a Zoom type platform, correct?
Yes. You can use Zoom or Teams. It doesn't matter because we actually have a program, and I got to figure out what you do to make sure that there isn't. It's not going to step on anybody else. I have a current client that we've been working with, where we market to federal employees to talk about specific challenges that they have with their retirement.
Right.
So, yeah, we do that now. But yeah, if you want to, we can talk.
Let's talk offline.
Yeah, we can talk offline, but it's same fundamentals. $7,500 get you on, and then we can we can market it. The way we do that, it's a little different. We'll talk offline. Is that cool?
Yeah, I'll send you an email.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions before we get out of here? Anybody? You're welcome, Linda. You're Markeisha. Awesome. Appreciate you guys. All right. Well, I'm gonna let you guys go. Actually, almost on time, Brian. Like first time. No, we do our best to keep it tight. But I appreciate you guys joining us. I'm gonna end that poll. Brian, you're the man. I appreciate you all always.
You're the man. Are you going to be on 3 o'clock? Our 3 o'clock? You just mentioned at 3 o'clock.
Oh no, I have a 3 o'clock. I don't know why that's not showing up on my calendar. I gotta put it back on.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I might be able to jump on, but give me a few.
Do you got if you got a couple, if you have a couple minutes, just talk to me and Ken, or
yeah. Let's shut this down.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. See you. Okay.
See you.